أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. We'll go ahead and start chapter 22, the pilgrimage, and we're going to read 38 verses tonight. Please go ahead, Mandra.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. O you people, fear your Lord. Indeed, the quake of the hour is an awesome event. The day when you see every nursing mother abandons her baby and every pregnant mother aborts her fetus, and you see the people as though they are drunk. However, they are not drunk. It is because God's punishment is most severe. And amongst the people are those who argue about God without knowledge and follow every rejected demon. It is written that whoever takes him as an ally, then indeed he will mislead him and will lead him towards the suffering of the inferno. O you people, if you are in doubt about the resurrection, then we indeed created you from clay, then from semen, then from an embryo, then from a fetus which was deemed created or not created, in order to clarify for you. And we place in the wombs what we will for a predetermined interim. Then we bring you out as a baby. Then we develop you to full maturity. And amongst you are some who die and some who reach the oldest age, in order to realize that nothing can be learned any longer. And you see the barren land. We then send down water upon it, whereby it vibrates, multiplies, and grows all kinds of beautiful things. This is because God indeed is the truth, and He indeed resurrects the dead, and indeed He is all-powerful over all things. And indeed the hour is coming without a doubt, and surely God resurrects those who are in graves. And amongst people are those who argue about God without knowledge, without guidance, and without an enlightening scripture. Arrogantly he diverts from the path of God. Awaiting him is humiliation in this world, and we will have him taste the suffering of the inferno on the day of resurrection. This is because your own two hands brought it on you, and God is never unjust towards his servants. And amongst the people are those who worship God conditionally. If something good happens to him, he is secure. But once he is tested, he turns about face, a loss in this world as well as the hereafter. This is the manifest loss. He calls upon others besides God. What that does not harm, he calls upon other besides God, what that does not harm or benefit him. This is the real misguidance. He calls something that is more harmful to him than beneficial. Indeed, what a miserable Lord, what a miserable companion. Surely God admits the faithful who led a righteous life into paradises with flowing streams beneath them. Indeed, God does whatever he wills. Anyone who thinks that God does not help him in this world as well as in the hereafter, he then should get help through a means to the sky, and then completely sever all ties, and then he will observe how his plan removes the very thing that has been bothering him. And he thus reveals proven signs, and indeed God guides whomever he wills. Indeed the faithful the Judeans, the converts, the Nazarenes, the Zoroastrians, as well as those who set up partners for God. God will judge amongst them on the day of resurrection. Indeed, God witnesses all things. Do you not see that to God prostrates everything in the vacua and in matter, and the sun and the moon and the stars and the mountains and the trees and the animals and many people? However, many others have truly deserved the suffering, and whomever God insults, then no one will respect him. Indeed, God does whatever he wills. Here are two feuding parties arguing about their Lord. Then for the ones who disbelieve, clothes of fire are tailored for them, and hellish liquid will be poured on top of their heads. It scalds their insides as well as their skin, and they will be confined in iron pots. Each time they try to get out because of the misery, they will be returned to it and taste more of the suffering of the inferno. Indeed, God admits the faithful who lead a righteous life into paradises with flowing streams beneath them, as they will be adorned therein with jewelry made of gold and pearl, and their clothes will be made of silk. They are guided to the word of purity, and they are guided to the path of the praiseworthy. Indeed, the unfaithful who have repelled from the path of God and the sacred mosque, that we have designated as a neutral place for the natives as well as the outsiders, and those who intend malice and transgression therein, we will have them taste a painful suffering. And when we pointed out to Abraham the location of the house and told him not to set up anything as a partner for me, and to cleanse my house for the visitors, for the residents, and for those who bow and prostrate, and call upon the people to come to pilgrimage, they will come to you on foot or riding every exhausted means from faraway places. This is in order to witness the benefit and to mention God's name during the known days upon what he has provided for them from the quadruped livestock. Therefore eat therefrom, and feed the despondent and the needy. Then they will fulfill their duties and be truthful to their covenants and visit the ancient house. This shall be done, and whoever honors God's prohibitions, it is better for him at his Lord. And permitted for you are livestock, except what is recited to all of you. Therefore, avoid the abomination of the idols, and you shall avoid deceitful utterance. You shall be a monotheist for the sake of God. Never set up a partner for him. And whoever sets up a partner for God, and then is indeed as though he has fallen from the sky and snatched away by the birds or blown by the wind to a faraway place. This is it, and whoever honors God's portents, then indeed he is one of those who have a God-fearing heart. For them therein are benefits for a specific interim, and afterwards their goal shall be the ancient house. And for every community we decreed rituals through which they mention God's name upon what we have provided for them from the quadruped livestock. Hence your God is one God. You shall offer peace to him and give good news to the humble ones. These are the ones when God is mentioned, their hearts tremble, and they persevere in the face of disaster, and they always uphold the contact prayers, and from what we provide for them, they give. As for the livestock, we rendered them for you as God's portents. There is good in them for you. Therefore you shall mention God's name upon them when they are in line, and when they fall on their side, responding to you. Eat therefrom and feed the one who is content with the little and the poor. We thus subdued them for you, that you may be appreciative. Neither their meat nor their blood reaches you, only your piety. Neither their meat nor their blood reaches God, only your piety reaches him. We thus subdued them for you, in order for you to extol God because he has guided you, and give good news to the do-gooders. Indeed, God defends the faithful. Indeed, God does not love every betrayer unappreciative.
Okay, mashallah. Thank you. Thank you. Very good. Okay, very good. Okay, now the floor is open for questions, comments, or observations.
Shalom, Dr. Fazely.
Alaikum salam. Yes, go ahead, please.
Two questions. One is in regards to having animals as a gift during the Hajj. for the life. So, sorry about that. It talks about the quadruple livestock, but I remember in one discussion we had, we talked about it can be any animal. I mean, is it just the quadrupled livestock or any animal?
Well, God says any gift that you offer. Okay, so but this is obviously top of the line, and so God is saying that this is what you can offer, but and then feed the poor and the needy and the one who's happy with just a little. But God also calls it a gift, so the gift can be anything that you can afford. Okay, if something is cheap for somebody, they can afford that, do that. If it's not, then this is obviously top of the line.
And it's not just for those who are at Mecca, like for us, for whatever reason we cannot go to Hajj. Do we offer this gift every year during the Hajj?
Yeah, it's just a start. It's just a start, and not only that, God wants you to get used to giving and feeding the poor.
Yes.
Okay, so it doesn't have to be just a certain time or certain place.
Mm-hmm.
It has to be all over the world. So in this case, one can do this. One can do this offering on the top of everything else that people are doing.
Yeah. Okay. So definitely, anytime during the year, providing charity or feeding poor is very important. Specifically for during the Hajj, I think that the way I read it, that we should give some offering, even if you're not at Mecca.
Extra burden upon those people who can afford to go to Hajj.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay? Think about it. It's not easy to go to Hajj.
Yes.
Okay, so you have to have the financial, strength to go to Hajj.
Mm-hmm.
And so that means that there's an extra burden upon those people to do this on the top of what they are doing during the year.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I mean, because of the situations nowadays, it's not, apart from the financial, it's not easy to go to Hajj in a safe manner. So I'm assuming that for those of us who can afford it, we need to keep that in mind. I mean, during the whole year, but specifically during Hajj.
Yes.
Okay.
No, I don't want to say this in that fashion, okay? Because you want to also make because if you do that, that means that this is a unique time that you do this. But my point is that somebody who goes to Hajj, this feast that they are offering to other people, which is top of the line stuff as far as protein and nourishment is concerned, has to be done because they have to give a ransom, let's put it that way, for what God has given them. Okay? It is not, it's not easy to make money. A lot of people think, a lot of rich people think it's easy to make money. It's easy to make money for them. But in general, making money is not easy. Okay? Some people, buy a piece of land and just let it stay there, and then in a few years it multiplies by a factor of 100 or 200. But that could not happen to everybody. Another person buys a piece of land, and the piece of land, you find radioactivity in there, and it's worthless. Okay? So my point is that blessing that God has given them, and the strength, the financial strength that He has given them, that they are able to go there, okay, then they have to give back something in return to God by feeding the poor and the needy.
Yeah, absolutely. The other question is, I think it was verse 36 that talks about when they're standing in line, when they're falling on their side to say God's name on them. It's, I think, where it has come from that, only when God's name is mentioned at the time of slaughter, that meat is halal. which is not true. This is only for Hajj, right?
This is again God wants to tell you that you keep commemorating God all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what God wants to tell you. Okay, it's not just the time of Hajj. So I don't want to make a ritual out of this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we have to do this, but God is saying that in order to be grateful to God for giving you this strength that you can actually do this, you can actually have some of the meat of these things going to the poor and the needy, you have to mention God's name. When you want to eat something at your home, you mention God's name. Okay? So the point about this whole thing is that on the top of this, God says, don't forget to commemorate me.
Yes.
Okay?
Thank you. Yes.
The only thing that I'm hesitating with the question that you're asking,
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to make this a ritual.
Right.
A lot of people think Hajj is a ritual.
Mm-hmm.
Hajj is not a ritual. Hajj is you go to Hajj because God has told you to go to Hajj, if you can afford it.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody does not bar you from the sacred mosque, which they have done that before. And they do that all the time. Okay, by making
Mm-hmm.
visas. Because the entire place is a neutral place. Everybody is welcome to go there. Regardless who they are, it doesn't make any difference.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? But my point is that I don't want to make this to feel like that, yeah, this is a ritual, and this, if we don't do this, then we are in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
You have to mention God's name all the time.
Yes.
Okay? And the point is that in here, God is saying that, look, when they are standing in line, again mention God's name. Again,
Mm-hmm.
commemorate me. Again, remember who did this for you.
Mm-hmm.
The one who provided for you is God. And so make sure that you remember me, that I have done this for you.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Fazely.
Welcome, salam. Yes, go ahead, please, Sadruddin.
Sir, I wanted to talk a little bit about 2231, and this is a analogy about what happens to people who set up partners for God, and it is an analogy at the same time. It is so incredibly vivid, and it kind of exudes hopelessness and helplessness and powerlessness, and it's loneliness, and as we know from other verses, permanence, and it's a very kind of a descriptive and jarring thing to ponder as to what the alternative is if you decide to reject God. I welcome your thoughts on this. Thank you.
I mean, God is telling you, He says that you have no place that you can actually strengthen your foothold. There is no place for you. And this is what He says, whoever sets up a partner for God, and then it is indeed as though he has fallen from the sky and snatched away by birds, or blown by the wind to a far away place. So that means that you do not have a place that you can actually call your station or your home, and this is what's going to happen to you. And you shall be a monotheist for the sake of God. Never set up a partner for Him. And then God warns us that what is going to happen to you, that you have no stable place, and the destiny of those people is going to be like this. It's going to be described in this way. There's no stability in their lives.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Any other question or comment or observation?
I'm Dr. Fazely.
Alaikum assalam, Shakira. Yes, go ahead, please. Hello?
Salam, Dr. Fazely.
Yes, I heard you. Go ahead, please.
I was looking at Surah 22, verse 15.
Yes.
That anyone who thinks that God does not help in this world, as well as the hereafter, then get help through a means to the sky, then completely sever all ties, then he will observe how his plan removes the very thing that has been bothering him. One thing is that the way you have translated it, no one else has translated it like this.
Which verse are you talking about? 22 what?
15, 1-5.
15. I'm sorry, 15. Okay. Hang on a second. Let me go back there. Yes. Anyone who thinks that God does not help him in this world, as well as in the hereafter, he then should get help through a means to the sky, and then completely sever all ties, and then he will observe how this plan removes the very thing that has been bothering him. Okay, means rely on God all the time. Never sever that tie with God. And if you do that, then everything is going to fall into place. Yeah. I mean, I haven't seen other translations, so I don't know how they translated this.
And then he tells us how to gain faith and trust in him, because he's telling that is why he's revealing the proven signs. Like you told us today, that all these things that are coming up almost every week to strengthen us and get us closer and closer to him.
Yes. Yes, indeed. I mean, we've seen those signs all the time, and as I said, they are basically testament to the structure of the Quran, and so it actually shows you the truthfulness of the Quran, and literally it actually generates those verses that are pertinent to the meaning of the Quran. I mean, we just read the 279 today. Okay, it was amazing, and that happens to be verse 279 amongst the revelation order of the uninitial surahs, and that is amazing. It's how it actually points to different places in the Quran, and it tells you what the content of those verses has to be. Okay, and it's mashallah, it's mind-boggling. I don't know how to say it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum, Ali.
Walaikum assalam, Tasneem. Yes, go ahead, please.
All these years, I've always wondered, what is this meaning of sever all ties? Meaning, you are in touch but not expecting anything from anybody, or what exactly does it mean in 22:15 when he says sever the ties?
Sever all ties means that you don't care.
I'm sorry.
You don't care about this worldly life. The worries that we have are from this worldly life. Okay, and so God says, forget about it. Put your trust in me and connect with me, and your situation is going to improve. And the very thing that was worrying you, that was bothering you, is going to vanish. That's what God is telling us.
So what are the limitations around severing ties? I always have this problem. Like, for example, you have friends, you have relatives with whom you are close, and what do you do with them? You are in touch with them, or you are not in touch with them when there is something going on in your life that needs Allah's help?
No. I mean, I'm not rude to people, to my relatives, my friends. I mean, how do I live? I mean, I don't know how these questions come up, to be honest with you.
How do you sever ties? Ties means that you are connected to somebody, either through friendship or relation, something like that.
Not to somebody. You can be connected to money.
Oh,
Okay?
I see. Mm-hmm.
You can be connected to a lot of things. You can be connected to, your wealth, your other things that you have, other amusement that you're caring about. Your job is the most important thing. All of these things that people are attached, they have attached to. Okay, but this doesn't by no means to be abandoning everybody. That's not the case. That's not the case at all. Is God says that this worldly life is like this, and this is how you should treat it. You should sever those ties and just put your trust in me, and this very thing that was bothering you is going to vanish.
Okay, understand. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. You finish it. What you were saying.
Yes, I'm finished. Yes.
So this reminds me of that verse in the Quran where I think it was Solomon who lets go of his horses because he was very attached to them. He lets go. You remember that verse?
Yes, I know. I know what you're talking about. Yes.
So it's probably that's what it means. I think just if you are attached to something that much, you let it go.
Yeah.
And that doesn't. Yeah. Go ahead.
That is true.
Sorry.
I mean, that is true. I mean, you can also be attached to your children-in-law.
I
Okay?
see. Mm-hmm.
Those cases are there. I mean, in the Quran, again, what's his name? Jacob was very attached to Joseph. Okay?
Yes.
And because of that, he suffered a lot. Okay? And so one has to know that all of these things belong to God. It doesn't belong to anybody else. And that's what God says: sever those ties and put your trust in me, and lead by my command. Lead your life by my commandments. And if you do that, then the very thing that was bothering you is going to vanish. Okay?
Yeah.
We can realize God says, He says that, remember those people, they were saying that give us a healthy baby, a good baby, and then when the baby is born, they idolize the baby besides God. Okay?
Yeah.
So those examples are in the Quran. And as I said, but, in this case, there are a lot of worldly belongings that we are attached to, and we should moderate those. And that's what God is telling us. So sever those ties that you have to this worldly life, and then you'll be fine. You will have no problems.
I get it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ali. Understand this now properly.
Salam, Dr. Fazely.
Salam. Yes.
Wouldn't it also mean that, like at the time of Joseph, when he told the guy, go and talk to the king about me, and God let him be in there for several years. So basically, since God is omnipotent and doing everything, asking other people to help us to do anything, or, like we say, business ties and things like that, all those things are also part of this, right?
Very good point. Yes, very good point. See, because the thing is that God is the one who does everything for you. And you cannot forget about God and rely on other people and other things for your success.
Yes.
So you
and basically, sorry. So basically, if we tell somebody these are the problems you have and this and that, it still is not going to help unless, because they're going to do what they're going to do and choose. But if you pray to God that this is that He can do these things and pray to Him, implore Him for that, then if He thinks it's good, He'll do it. If not, He will not. But we don't really have to tell somebody all these things.
Yep. God will never let you down. He will never let you down.
Yes. Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anything else? Any other comments or question, observations?
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Fazely, and everyone else. I'd like to stay on 22:15 because 22:15, as you said, and never depend on anyone else, always brings you back to 14:22 when Satan said, I promised you, but there was nothing he could do. I don't have the ayat available from your version, but it just says, I'll read it from Dr. Khalifa's. And the devil said after the judgment, which is 14:22, God has promised you the truthful promise, and I promised you, but I broke my promise. I had no power over you. And it's on and on, but I was just thinking that 14:22 always brings me back to 15:22 and back and forth.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very good. Very good.
I'd like to ask a question about today's sermon. I'm trying to understand that when you say the contents of any particular surah that we read, these are the ayats and these are what belong in there. So they don't change. I'm just trying to understand. But what brings me the question is that in Surah 8 or chapter 8, when you change to voluntary work from the spoils of war, that it wasn't the content you were changing, but the understanding that of a higher level of what we should have understood about that chapter?
That is my understanding of that chapter, yes.
Okay. So it's not that the chapter changed, but you just had a different understanding, and so the title can always change to meet the higher understanding. But the name of the chapter, but not the chapter itself.
Well, I mean, you have two options, okay? Either understand in terms of spoils of war,
meaning
of al-alfal, okay? Another means you do voluntary work. So the idea of doing salat nafilatan has the same root as nafala, which is anfal. So they have the same root, which means voluntary prayers. So
okay.
My understanding from that surah is that it means it is a work which is not required from you, but you do it anyway. And so, if somebody wants to understand it in terms of spoils of war, that's their privilege. I don't agree with that, and so that is my deduction from that surah. Again,
I understand you. What I took overall is that no matter what we're reading, even when we talked about the Bible and it says God in His own made man in His own image, that it wasn't the wording, but the understanding that we get is what makes it higher up or changes the meaning, not the way it's just written.
Yeah, I mean, again, you see, the thing is that we don't know what God looks like, okay? And so, saying that His own image, that means that you think that God looks like a human being,
right?
Which is not a safe way of doing this, and
right.
So, an image is different from His image. Okay? An image is different from His image. So that image, whatever God had preordained for us, that was the basis of our design. And Musawwir, photographer, is somebody who makes an image, okay, of something. So whatever that is, I don't know what it is, but I'm just saying that we cannot argue against that verse in the Bible, because it's taken a little bit out of context, and it could have been better if it was was translated as not his image by an image. Okay, so that was my argument during the conference this year when I was talking about it.
I appreciate the what you said, basically, because when I read now, it doesn't make me say, that's not the truth, and then, close myself off, especially when I'm reading the previous scriptures. And so it was very helpful to understand it in that process, the way you just explained it. And I wasn't questioning or knocking it. I was just saying that I found another way of looking at the scriptures now when I'm reading it, and I appreciate that. And thank you.
Exactly. Okay. Again, there's a lot of argument on these different websites and stuff that basically defends the fact that people are supposed to beat their wives. Okay, and it accuses a lot of translators that these are just modern translators and they want to have a very soft image of the Quran. And that's how they translate it, and they say that doesn't mean to beat their wives. And so, that's how they want to portray Islam and relation between men and women in those terms. So be it. I can't tell them how to understand the Quran or whatever it is. And if they want to call those other people that are more now in this case, none of them ever refers to Rashad Khalifa's translation. In this case, specifically, they do, because Rashad says beat. Okay, they like that in this case. In this unique case, they do. So this is all hypocrisy. This is all hypocrisy on their part. But anyway, but that's what they say. But we cannot codify these things, and that's not what I want to do. I don't want to codify this, and I want to get it as close as possible to the meaning of the Quran, what it means, and whatever God is basically revealing to me, I'm sharing with everybody. And if people don't like it, then they can understand it in a different way. If they think that chapter 8 means spoils of war, and that people have to go and defeat a group of people and rob them blind, okay, that is fine. If that's the Islam and that's God, the God that they are defining in their own image, okay, so be it. It doesn't.
Salam, Dr. Fazely.
Salam, Nishat. Yes.
Talking about the previous scriptures, I was trying to find a good translation of Psalm, and as I was doing Google search, there were so many different versions of Psalm. Some was like in Bible websites, some were in the Jewish websites and stuff like that. Is there a good translation that you can refer to us?
Well, you can look at the Bible Gateways, and it has different translations. New American Standard, I don't know, English translation. They have the King James Version, and they have New King James Version, and all kinds of different things. And there are certain differences between those translations. And but in the case of the Quran there are certain places, like in chapter 47, verse 4. Okay, they have said to cut off necks or heads. Okay, and the entire verse and the entire Arabic is not an imperative statement. Okay? So, I don't know how they get that. وَالذَّرْبَ الرِّقَابِ is not an imperative statement. And every place in the Quran, the word al-riqab means slaves, and except in here, they call it necks. Okay, so if you wanna portray that to people and take it out of context and massacre the Arabic grammar, that is their privilege. They can do that. But we have to open up our eyes and take a look at this and see what God is actually talking about. If you translate it that way, that whole verse doesn't make any sense whatsoever. We read it one time and it did not make any sense. Okay, because it's not the true meaning of that verse. Okay, and that is Surah Muhammad. Okay, a lot of people who are anti-Islam, they use that in anti-Quran. They use that verse to say this is the true Islam. It's not their fault because it has been translated that way by a lot of people. And the same thing with chapter 4, verse 34, which says beat the women. Okay, they do the same thing. So the whole thing doesn't make any sense, because if you already beaten your woman, then the verse after that doesn't make any sense. It said then take a representative from the wife's family and the husband's family and let them reconcile this. Reconcile what? You've already beaten the woman. Okay? I mean, it's amazing, but the whole thing has to make sense. And it just doesn't make any sense. And that's the Quran that they are portraying to the outside world. Okay? And then, as I said, then all kinds of bad things come out of it. And then they say, well, these people that are claiming that they are true Muslims and stuff, these are the real Muslims. And these other people are some intellectual elites that they want to have a more benign version of the Quran, and that's how they try to say that these verses mean. But that's not true. Okay? I mean, I argue with any linguist, Arab linguist, that tell me that Zarb al-Raqab is an imperative statement. It's not. Okay? It's not a command. You cannot translate it as a command. It's not a command. Udrub is, not that. Okay? It means that you torment somebody. You hit somebody. Zarb al-Raqab means that they are abusing the slaves. That's what it means. And that's exactly what happens. Only the poor people and the slaves go to war. The other people, they used to go to National Guards. Okay? And since we are in this country, so we can say that, Mr. Bush, George W. Bush, the second Bush, he went to the National Guards during the Vietnam War. So he was not sent to Vietnam. Okay? The same thing with Mr. Quayle. Mr. Quayle went to National Guard. Was the vice president of the first Bush. Okay? So only the poor people and those people that have no other means, they are sent to war. Okay? And so they are being abused. So, and that's what God says. When you face these people, this is what you see. And that's what the true believers saw. The true believers saw that the other side, the idol worshippers, were fighting against them. They were abusing the slaves. Okay? But if you say, well, cut off necks and stuff, cut off heads, then people think that that's what it's supposed to be, that you're actually supposed to cut off heads. That's the true Muslim. Okay?
Yeah, and that's the reason I'm asking for if there is the better translation of wrong that we should read, because I was reading from one of the Bible websites the other night, and there was a verse that was referring to God as Astaghfirullah, Father, and the human being as children, which is like the understanding of some of the Christians of with the Taslis and Trinity. And I was just like, it turned me off really when I saw that, and I don't believe that true soul has that verse, or at least, I mean, I was just reading the translation. I don't understand the original language, but is there a translation that is closer to the true meaning of Psalm that we should read?
No, I mean, we don't need it. You don't need it. You know that father means initiator. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
mm-hmm.
look at it. Okay, in Spanish is padre, in Farsi is pedar, in Arabic is Vater, chapter 40. Okay, in German is Vater. Okay, how many languages should we say this? And that means that the father is the initiator. Initiates it. That's what it does. And so every time I read that, I read the Lord's Prayers. That's what I do. I say, "Our initiator who are in heaven," instead of "Our Father who is in heaven." Okay. In this country and in these other countries, when they borrowed that from Arabic, they took it the wrong way, and they made it as a physical father. But it simply means that's the initiator of the entire thing. Okay? And we just read it. Okay, it's let's see here. Let's go back to this. I talked about this. Remember that? I went too far.
Yeah, I remember you mentioned Father one time as the initiator.
This one here, it says, you see, it says, indeed created you from clay, then semen. See, semen is generated by father, by the male species, okay? Then from an embryo, then from a fetus, which is deemed created or not created, in order to clarify for you. And we place in the wombs what we will for a predetermined interim. Then we bring you out. It's the complete, what do you call it? Complete embryology of human beings in this case. God is saying that. But the Father is supposed to be the initiator. And that's what God is. God is the initiator. That's in chapter 40. Father samawati wal ard. He is the what do you want to translate as? Father of the skies and the land, or the vacuum and matter? That's not the case. He is the initiator of the skies and the land, or the vacuum and matter. So that's what God is. That's who God is. So what I'm saying is that you should not bind yourself in the other people's misunderstanding. Okay? So don't look for another translation. Understand it by yourself. Ask God to help you. God will then show you. He says, okay, this guy is pedar. In Spanish is padre. In German is Vater, just like Vater in Arabic. Okay? Where do you think those words came from? Why are they so close to each other? Because one of them was borrowed from the other one. And then in English is father. Okay? So all of these things, that when you see it, then you deduce from these facts the true meaning of it, what really God meant. Okay. As I said, but unfortunately, in English language, it means that a physical father, which is not the case, obviously.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Barry? Is Barry online? Obviously not.
Hello? Hello?
Yes.
Hello, Dr. Fazely, Jerry, Sheely, Virginia Beach? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Go ahead, please.
Yes, I just want to make a quick note off what For Real talked about. I've been reading, I read that Surah 8, Spoils of War, many times, and every time I read it, the first thing would come to mind would be, okay, spoils of war to the victor, the spoils to the victors. So whoever wins the war gets to take the property of the other individual. Now, if you started the war, if you didn't start the war and you won the war, you still get to go and take the property of the person that you beat. So I always thought about that as spoils of war. But now I got a clearer view I see when you say voluntary work. So spoils of war, the benefits of spoils of war is that you get all the pride, you win everything, and now you have a higher feeling about yourself. You have a higher self-worth. Also, in voluntary work, if you do extra work to benefit your own soul, and you also receive a higher. Can you hear me? You can't hear me.
There's some extras.
You can't hear me.
Everybody falling out of the meeting. See that?
So is it? Yeah. Okay. What's I said? Look here. Hello. That was really good.
Okay, very good. Okay. All right, yeah, go ahead, please.
Dr. Fazely.
Yes.
Okay, yes. So what my point is that now that I understand voluntary work, when you do voluntary work, you receive extra benefits for your extra work. So you get to enjoy a higher spiritual feeling of yourself. The same feeling you would get if you won a war, whether you started it or not, and you get this, you earn the booty or whatever you receive from the war. So just got a better connection for myself as far as the understanding of spoils of war and voluntary work. I can see how they both correlate into the same understanding of voluntary work, receiving extra spiritual, higher connection, and feeling better about yourself. And if you win a war, whether you started the war or you just were the victim of, but you end up winning the war, you're still going to receive the benefits and the higher spiritual whatever. So that was my point. Just a comment. Thank you, sir.
Very good. Thank you. Very good. Okay, anything else? Okay, if there are no more questions, we'll quit for tonight, and then we'll finish this chapter, inshallah, next week. Okay?